you can share a bit about what your focus is and how you got there in the first place.
Yeah.
And and then I have plenty of questions I can ask you about the nature
Okay.
of high conflict divorce, attachment, and nervous system responses and all sorts of stuff. I've been seeing a
Yeah.
lot more couples lately too, so I think we'll just be able to flow with it and keep what
Okay.
we want and discard the rest.
Okay. Sounds good.
So what brought
Yes.
you to high conflict divorce?
Well,
Did you
so
have one?
I did. I did. I had a high conflict divorce and I was going to therapist. This was 22 years ago.
Yeah.
So no one really knew. There was that book, The Good Divorce, that was out that was great for people who were capable of having a good divorce. It didn't have much to offer the people who were not. And so I was going to therapists for help with like a really nasty divorce and I wasn't getting any help. I was I mean they were supportive but they just didn't really understand why it was so bad and so I ended up feeling like really kind of alone and ashamed and what is going on. So I started researching high conflict divorce and learned that it was something very different and that it just needed a different set of strategies to navigate it. And so I actually have also simultaneously been a freelance writer. So I had a column for the HuffPost divorce section. Back in the day, HuffPost had a
Yeah,
divorce
cool.
section. And so I just wrote this article called What Therapists Don't Tell You About Divorcing a High Conflict Personality. I think this was like 13 or 14 years ago. And all these people wrote me and said, "Oh, you really understand what I'm going through." And so then I just realized, oh, this is a niche.
So let me
So
stop you real quick. You entered therapy during high conflict divorce, and what did you notice was off or ineffective to you?
well, it was a lot of platitudes, like,
Hmm.
they'll get over it eventually. Kind of use your I statements, be empathetic,
So
focus on.
this was navigating like staying in the marriage initially?
No, this was the
How to
divorce
navigate
part.
the divorce. I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think it was more how I felt with the therapist, which is I felt like a lot of them just didn't really understand high conflict divorce. So I left the sessions feeling like they didn't know what to do with it. And so when you're somebody who really needs help and the person trying to help you is kind of like, like, I don't know, like you don't feel better.
Yeah.
Um, so
Well, and if a
that's,
therapist is sending you platitudes, that
yeah,
speaks to unskilled therapist as well, not just
yes.
the high
Yeah.
conflict
And I want
nature.
to, cause I don't
Yeah.
want to bash the therapist that I had. I think part of it is all people had was that good divorce model, which is now kind of like the conscious uncoupling model. And
Hmm.
there's just people that is like never going to work for.
So, did you find someone that modeled more effective high conflict therapy for you, or did you
Yeah,
cultivate that yourself? You didn't.
there's a guy called, I mean, I didn't find him personally, but he's
Okay.
online. His name is Bill Eddy, and he's a social worker and a mediator and a lawyer, and he has something called the High Conflict Institute. And he doesn't just work with people with bad divorces. He works with people who, have difficult work situations. Or, you have a family member who causes conflict, whatever. So he really was the first one to say that high conflict personalities behave a certain way. They tend to have very black and white thinking. They tend to have extreme emotions, extreme behaviors, um, and kind of like there's sort of only one way to solve a problem and it's theirs. So those are the kinds of people that you see those characteristics in high conflict divorce. Sometimes it's more one of the people and sometimes it's both. Um, so it was when I kind of learned And also, I think it was understanding that there's no amount of reason that's going to change somebody who's really entrenched in a high conflict position. Like, you can't reason them out of it.
No.
Yeah. And I guess, there's so many things I could say about this, but I think like almost everybody, because now I have this specialty, I see so many people in high conflict divorce, and I would say at least one of the people in the high conflict divorce, if not both, there's all this intergenerational trauma. So there's lots of cutoffs, there's lots of personalities that were very domineering with somebody who was like very passive.
You
There's
mean
all
like
these,
relationship severing? You say cut off? What do you mean by cut
yeah,
off?
could be
Okay.
relationship severing, but could also be sort of dynamics of like just a really domineering parent with a very passive parent. And
Right.
then, kind of what that does to the whole attachment system, like all these environmental failures that a child grows up with. And so they then have a dysregulated nervous system. And then they, of course, will pick somebody who is going to trigger that attachment
Yep.
system. And then those people get married and they have a really contentious divorce.
Yeah, so the reenactment patterns ensue in the marriage, but then probably exacerbate further during divorce.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people feel like, well, we're not getting along. There's all this conflict. We don't want to expose the kids to it, which is a really good thing to think. But then they think, well, if we're not married, it'll be less conflict. And they don't realize that I mean, sometimes it's even more conflict because you've got to agree on all these things about your children
Well,
when
and
you
then you
don't.
have the divorce is spoken about as an event, right? Well, there's stuff that predates and then there's this event, but especially if you have children, there's this component of like the need to co-parent. So that
Yeah.
creates a whole different potential focus for therapy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is now we have these very sort of sophisticated parenting philosophies. We know a lot about, how a parent's nervous system affects the child. We have, people really do their research about what's the best parenting philosophy for the
Mm,
child, but divorce isn't set up for that. Like, you can't control how your co-parent does anything in their house. So there's a lot of people I see who have really good intentions. They believe that everything should be exactly the same in both households. But the other person experiences that as you're trying to control me or you're like taking my role away. So I feel like it's like you kind of have to grieve. I'm not going to have this idealized co parenting situation because my kind of divorce doesn't support it. Like, it's actually not possible. And
yeah.
most of my work is helping people grieve that when they just think, if I can just find the therapist who will tell my ex that they're doing everything wrong, like this will all be better.
Yeah, the other part is the ongoing abuse that can occur because you have to attempt to navigate co-parenting. So like in a divorce where there's no child parent dynamic, you don't have children together and you write it off as like very abusive, you can elect to not speak to them again.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have like smaller children, well, it's okay. Now you have to maintain an engaged relationship with someone who is volatile.
Yeah, and so I want to sort of take this opportunity to talk about like the kinds of divorces I work with and
Mm,
like what is abuse. Like, I don't work with DV cases. So a lot of what I'm saying is really not applicable to somebody who has a DV situation. It's more people who just can't agree on anything and are in and out of court over kind of minor things.
right.
I
Yeah.
think there is certainly an element of emotional abuse
Mm.
in that, but it's not the same as the person you were married to was physically
Yeah, you're feeling
abusive to
physically
you and your children.
endangered. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, and I also think that, um like social media has just, it's been great in terms of giving people information, but then it also is very divisive because I feel like all the social media channels for like divorced women are your ex is a narcissist, and all the ones for the divorced men are your ex is a borderline.
Oh,
And
I was on an airplane recently and I turn around and some woman is reading Divorcing a Narcissist. That's like the title.
yeah,
I'm just like, ka-ching. You
yeah.
probably a lot of people probably picked that up at the airport.
I mean, and yeah, there are narcissists who get divorced, but there's like the difference between somebody with a personality disorder and somebody
Hmm.
who maybe has some narcissistic features, or maybe is just, they're not actually a narcissist, but because they're disagreeing with you and because you have all these attachment wounds, it could feel that they were very narcissistic. But once people have this idea in their mind that my ex is a narcissist, if you see somebody that way, you're going to behave accordingly. And I think I see a lot of people invite the very behaviors they don't want. Like there's a lot of trying to give the other person an epiphany. Like if I just explain to you everything that's wrong
Hmm.
with your personality and
Which is personality
how
issue in and of itself.
right. But I think a lot of people are really thinking like this is what's in the best interest of my child. If I get
Yeah.
you, my co-parent, to realize all of your flaws and just accept my way of co-parenting, this is the right thing for the children. And
Yeah,
that has never changed anybody ever.
anytime personality disorders come up in these episodes, I try to, it's like my call to action where I have to be like the one person online that tries to remind the public that if you are socially awkward, it doesn't mean you're autistic. And
Totally.
if your partner is selfish, even a lot of the time, it does not mean that they have narcissistic personality disorder.
Totally.
And so we have to like go against the grain of pop psychology because if I'm in a doom scroll and my partner uh just did something really selfish and I'm unhappy in the relationship and then I have some like attractive woman on my feed complaining and talking about narcissistic men and what you need to do and hot girl summer bullshit, um what's gonna happen, right? Is this like victimization and
Totally.
overgeneralization of stuff.
And I want to, that's another thing about attachment styles. Like, just because, like a man doesn't want to marry you or doesn't even want to have a serious relationship, it doesn't mean he's got an avoidant attachment style. Like, maybe you're just not right for each other. But I feel like I see a lot of women labeling men as avoidant when, I don't know, maybe they're just not ready for the relationship. So I just feel like there's just so much kind of, I think these labels are helpful, but we're too quick to label people who don't meet our needs as being deeply pathological.
Yep. And that therein lies the issue with uh like the love language phenomena that was created by a Baptist pastor.
I never really got it. I know sort of vaguely what the love languages are, but I never really did the
Yeah,
deep
because
dive.
I have couples that they'll bring up stuff like that,
Okay.
like my love language. I don't really
Uh-huh.
know all of them either. It's like one is quality time, one
Oh,
is
yeah, and,
gift giving.
is it words of affirmation?
Yeah, yeah. So there is this influx with social media and coupling where there's this overemphasis on my partner needs to meet my needs.
All the
And
time.
if I use therapy speech, and they're going to be screwed with like doing this with men, right? Like if a woman's going
Yeah.
to use therapy speech to try to get her needs met, he's going to be like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Get off my
Yeah.
ass."
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but it's like, at what point did this shift? Because like a lot of I mean, honestly, there's a lot of context. I don't want to overgeneralize, but when you think of like divorce increasing and all this, like obviously there is a huge systemic disempowerment of women that has an effect on the less amount of divorce that happened pre 90s or even 2000s. Like you didn't have like a occupant, like you didn't have a career or where anywhere to go. You'd be like religiously shamed, stuff like that. But, there was differentiation of role and a lot less emphasis on this expectation that my partner is gonna meet my emotional child wounds. It
Yeah.
just
Well, you
wasn't like the expectation.
no, no, it was more of a business arrangement in a way. But you just said something that made me think about why, what is going on with the family court system. Um, because the roles have changed since, the 60s and 70s. It used to be
Mhm.
the mom would get, child support or alimony for life, and she'd get full custody or mostly custody. And a lot of times, dads would drift away, but it's because they weren't really given a role. I mean, that's part of it. I think sometimes there were
Yeah,
always going to be men who were truly deadbeat dads. But I think if you're not really given a role in your kids' lives and you have a hard time managing the rejection that you feel, like a lot of those fathers would, you know, um, maybe not have the tools to know how to repair things with their kids. And then the kids would grow up feeling like, oh, my dad didn't care. But now we have, because of the father's rights movement and the shift towards 50-50 custody, we have all these men standing up for, I want equal time. And I think women have sort of taken it all on, like, I've gotta work, but I've also gotta be the best mom ever, because women are still so judged on the basis of their mothering.
sure.
And so a lot of women really have a hard time letting, their ex, the dad, co-parent, do things their own way because it's not their way. And maybe, yeah, maybe it's less than ideal, but, family court is not at all set up to deal with, coordinating, uh, when potty training is happening or how homework is getting supervised. Like, family court is really only set up for if you're driving drunk with your kids, you lose custody time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people go to family court thinking the judge will see, that I'm right and will sort of point out what my ex is doing wrong and I'll get full custody, and that it just doesn't happen anymore. So I think part of sort of the shift in roles and expectations is also fueling high conflict divorce, because going to court, so often makes things worse. Like, it doesn't really make anything better.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you have all these different, divorced parents dumping money into family court that is not gonna resolve anything as opposed to co-parenting therapy.
Yeah. And it's funny. I was talking with a colleague who has has had way more experience in family court than I have, and we were just talking about our role as co-parenting therapists is really to get each person to recognize when their feelings about the other parent are driving the conflict, but also kind of give up this dream of this is what good parenting looks like. To
Right.
just because so many of the things people are disagreeing about, they're just not worth it. It's really the conflict. And studies have shown this. It's the conflict that hurts the kids, whether or not you're divorced. If you're in the marriage, if you're divorced, if they're just exposed to continuous conflict, that's much worse than, you know, who who packed the best lunch.
Yeah, getting someone to think about the conflict pattern as opposed to the content of the conflict.
Yeah. So it's a lot. I think, and I've spent a lot of time thinking, like, why is this so hard? Like, people have such a hard time letting go of it. And I just think it's unprocessed grief. I think people have dreams, and a lot of times it's somebody who didn't have a great childhood. So they had this dream of, I'm going to have this perfect marriage and my kids are going to have this kind of life. And when they see that that's not going to be possible because of the divorce and the co-parent that they have, it's really hard to accept that. Like they don't know how to go to a plan B. But I mean, it all to me kind of comes down to just grief and radical acceptance. And then like figuring out, okay, what is my dream now, even though it's these circumstances are less than ideal.
Yeah, and if I'm sometimes I'll do more high conflict couples, not necessarily divorce. They might, those clients might be on their way to divorce, but
Uh-huh.
like my experience, there is not much that can be done if you can't get to this space where the reactivity lessens. So
Yeah.
like so much is where one partner might be talking about something and their perspective and the other like they can't even look at them. There's this
Mm-hmm.
contempt and there's this like
Mm.
frozenness or like I need to shut down so I don't rage reaction.
Mm.
Even when like the partner isn't being and vice versa with these like high conflict partners. And they're like, well, we need to get to the bottom of like these different philosophical parts about the relationship and like the past and all this. I'm like, you guys can't even sit in the same fucking room together. What? You can't like talk about hardly anything without reacting and
Yeah.
becoming visceral. So
Yeah.
why do you think we should talk about that stuff? And that stuff doesn't even fucking matter half the time.
Yeah.
It's this. It's this
Exactly.
conflict. Like, but they think
Exactly.
I'm not doing my job because we haven't set to our goal. I'm like, the pursuit of the goal that you think is the nature of the issue itself. Like
Yeah.
you're coming in thinking we need to resolve this argument and I need to be seen as right about X, Y, or Z, and then we can get back to connecting. Like the nature of that pursuit is part of the conflict cycle itself. And so when I like flip it upside down, they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, totally. I think the Gottmans have really good research on that because they have a statistic. It's like 69% of the conflicts that happily married people have are never resolved. Like,
Mm,
there's just sort of this myth that, the happily married people just don't have conflicts, and it's not true. But it's the way they dialogue about the conflicts. Like, they're
mm.
not contemptuous, they kind of have a sense of humor about it. Um, and
It's not as high stakes. Like I see
no,
like a lot of these conflict cycles where it's and it's because of like childhood wound, right? Because we have
totally.
this attachment system that's fired up thinking if my mother doesn't love me, then I'm going to be stranded in a gully and starve to death. Like that's a problem when you have that visceral emotional response to your partner about
Yeah.
something that's happened. Like that's a problem with you. And people don't want to look at that.
No, they don't. They don't. They want you to tell them what's wrong with the partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like when
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that, but like or if so when you're doing high conflict divorce stuff, that's with one person, I would imagine.
Sometimes it's with both, and
Okay.
sometimes it's with one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cuz like when I work with couples, it's like and maybe I'm doing some I could incorporate something else, but the high conflict nature of them is like, okay, well, we got to get you guys right in your own nervous systems and like your capacity to deal with that while witnessing the other person first before we can do anything else.
Yeah. And so when I work with people individually or I run divorce groups, like I talk a lot about nervous system regulation
Mhm.
because as we know, if you're dysregulated, you are not interpreting reality 100% objectively. And you are responding oftentimes to like an emotional flashback, right? You're not even responding to what's happening in the here and now. And then you're making unskillful choices and you're inviting the very
Yeah.
behavior that you don't want. So,
Well, we
I
have
spend a
trouble
lot of
like summarizing what someone has just said when we're not activated.
uh-huh.
So put an
Yeah,
activation on there.
yeah,
It's impossible.
yeah. So, but what do you see with your couples? Like, what do you think? I'm curious to hear from a male therapist perspective. Like, what do you see the women tend to do that invite conflict and the men tend to do that invite conflict? Or do you feel like it's not necessarily even gendered?
Uh, well, it's hard to say. I will have one or the other in couples where they play so damn nice, it's hard to get anything of substance to happen,
Oh,
or they're both like cornered feral cats. It's like one or the other.
uh-huh.
Um, I do think, and I did a uh, blog post about this recently. That might have been how we connected. Like when the male needs a separate room. I think
Yeah,
we connected through something I
I
wrote.
think
But
we did. Yeah.
I can say, and it's hard to not speak in generalities when asked that kind of question, but like what I'll usually see is women have more of a emotional lexicon
Mhm.
and more exposure to pop psychology because they're going to be more
Mhm.
like curious about all this stuff. And so they come in with a lot of misinformation. The dude comes in with like no information. And so it's like a cornering that can happen, right? Where I think you got to be very aware of that dynamic coming in because a woman might have way more aptitude to speak in a language that the therapist knows or is
Uh-huh.
more familiar with, and you can do a joining with them to try to fix the male. And so then the male and the the coupling becomes the identified patient,
Yeah.
and you've lost him from day
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
the reality is, as therapist, is it's like, okay, obviously, if someone's talking about a feeling, we're gonna naturally be more curious and lean into that more versus someone who has very low emotional intelligence. However, I'd argue that at times someone with the low emotional intelligence may be more objectively aware of the pattern itself because they're not filtered by all of the emotional components.
Oh, wait, say more about that. That's interesting. A
So there's
person with
been
a low
times
intelligence.
where like there's been like guys that are like boomhauer, like it's like, are you asleep at the wheel? Like what is going on here? Just like not really able to
Uh-huh.
engage with the emotional part, but they can speak more uh, logically about the pattern itself because they're not as in tune with their emotions. So it's not like
Uh,
they're not emotionally
their
activated telling
cortex is
me
online.
what's going on, right? And I'm
Yeah,
not saying that's better, but it can be an important element to treating the dyad itself. Because obviously, if both are like emotionally activated, like there's no narrator.
yeah,
And I might
yeah,
have to push him to be more emotionally expressive and figure out and identify stuff like that. But it's important to not miss that piece.
yeah, for sure.
Because you could easily
Yeah,
skip that and just be like, all right, well, you're not talking about how you feel, and she feels anxious about that or whatever.
yeah.
But let
I
everyone
think
have
if
an equal voice, regardless of like
mhm,
your conceptualization of them.
mhm. Yeah, I think if we could just magically regulate everybody's nervous system and it would stay regulated all through therapy, like, people would probably stop coming.
Yeah. Yeah. And that there's another piece that I see some where when there's consistent conflict and we're trying to do work together, um, people obviously want to quit. And the idea of quitting is relieving, right? I don't have to engage in this anymore. And then they might go and pursue individual therapy and all this, and they're like, "Oh, well that person was the problem because I feel great now. Like
Mhm.
I'm going on hikes more than I used to, or I'm doing Pilates, or I'm in a book club, or like there's stuff that I'm thriving in that I wasn't." And I think that when we're not in a partnership, it can create the illusion of growth and healing.
For
because there's
sure.
no conflict. I
Yeah.
get to do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah. Is that I can't remember, is that imago? The whole idea of, like, the relationship is the crucible? It's the conflict that helps us burn off our character defects.
I like that. Yeah, because it's like, yeah, we all have a plan to get punched in the mouth, you know? It's like it's easy. I mean, I'm not for everyone, right? A lot of people panic being alone, but like there's regardless if you're alone or with someone, it's like it is easier to not have that conflict. And if you're
Yeah.
in a relationship, you're in conflict.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's bad. It can.
Yeah.
And so I see this kind of draw to like, oh, I could just end this and I could just do whatever I want and get in my healing journey and like all this stuff. It's like you could, but like that doesn't absolve you from showing up in a relationship and realizing, oh wait, this is a conflict. This is a familiar conflict. Wait, I'm me and I'm in it. What does that mean?
Yeah. And, I'm thinking about some people that I've worked with for years. I started working with them because they were in a high conflict divorce, and then the divorce more or less resolved itself, and we continue to work. And, like, that is oftentimes really rich work because when they're not so immediately threatened by what an ex is doing, then they kind of have to focus on,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what were actually my mistakes? Like, was I too reactive? Did I not set boundaries? Like, did I sort of overlook all these red flags because I wanted to be in a relationship and then they've gone on, to have rebound relationships? I mean, I really think this might sound a little woo woo, but I deeply, deeply believe that high conflict is an invitation to personal growth. Like, there's always some lesson in there about oneself that if you get out of blame, like if you just stop blaming, it's like, oh, but I have the stuff that, was left over from childhood, or just these things that I need to change in myself, since I can't change the other person. And so the people who do that work, um, like, I really see change, but I do see a lot of people who just are very stuck in blaming the other person.
Yeah, the people that are reading How to Divorce a Narcissist on an Airplane.
Yeah.
Those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're on their
Yeah.
healing journey, diagnosing their partners,
Yeah.
victimizing themselves. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, even the thing about that stuff too is like, even if that's true,
Then
even
what?
if, right,
You still got a kid to raise.
right.
Yeah. But the other trend that I've noticed too, and maybe it's just my algorithms, is all this family estrangement. It's adult children deciding, I don't want to have a relationship with my parents anymore.
Yeah. You've seen a lot of that
And
lately, you're saying?
yeah, yeah, I've seen a lot of it. And there's different, like, very different perspectives on it. But I think, again, like, going back to how the roles have changed, like, you know, the silent generation raised kids to be silent. Like, they didn't want to hear about your feelings, and mom and dad are always right. And this is sort of what the rules are. And even if there was all this dysfunction, you would never bring it up.
Mhm.
And now, but I think also that worked because we were more in smaller communities, like families kind of stayed in the same town, or reputation was really important, like a family's reputation if it was a small town. But now that people have gotten so spread out, um,
They're not as worried about the gossip Sunday morning.
uh, no. And
Yeah.
also, like, as younger generations have learned about emotional attunement and attachment styles, and they can reflect on their parents and go, oh my God, yeah, I had this, very emotionally immature parent, and I had to be the parent, and I don't want to continue to be the parent. And then I think a lot of times it's when that adult child marries and has their own family, it's like there's I think because they feel secure in what they've created, there's just, if they want they can't continue the relationship that they had with their adult parents if they don't get some kind of acknowledgement from the adult parents that they made mistakes. And I think old style parenting was, how dare you even come to me telling me I've made a
Right.
mistake?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've seen any of that in your practice
Oh
or if
yeah,
it's
and
just
then
my algorithm.
the 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 client that like becomes estranged from the parent or severs the relationship tied to their parent or parents, they tend to have an overzealous belief in their own parenting
Mm,
and this belief that their children will never view them very negatively.
mm,
And it's because they've severed. It's because there was then and there was after. And because I've severed all attachment, I've severed all influence by them, and so they're not going to bleed into my offspring. But it's like
mm,
that's not how emotional blueprinting works.
mhm,
And it also like evokes a lot of blind spots when
mhm.
you think of yourself that way as a parent.
Like you figured it all out.
And it was the solution was to get away from that toxic person, and now
Mhm.
I can like now I've got it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what Bowen was warning us about, right? Back with
Mhm. Well,
family
and the thing is
systems,
like
emotional
children's
cutoff.
minds are are fragile and very impressionable, and as a parent, you're viewed as literally a godlike figure. So by the nature of that expectation, you're gonna let them down, and it's impossible not to fuck them up.
It really is.
It is absolutely
Yeah.
impossible, and your attempts to not fuck them up might fuck them up.
Yeah.
Because then you have like you're overreacting to their dysregulation. You're trying to
Yes.
fix their discomfort, and now you've got a new issue.
Yeah. And I think about that too with, like I raised my kids in Los Angeles, which was around very progressive parents. So we were all like reading all the books and
Mhm.
doing all of that. And just, I think, so many of the kids were so anxious, and I have to wonder how much of it was like they're picking up on we, the parents, like our own anxiety of how we were doing everything. Like everything kind of had to be perfect for
Oh,
the
probably.
kids.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
why there's no way to like you could be disengaged or engaged. It's you know,
Yeah.
there's a swing from that happens, and we don't really know what it looks like until they grow up. And then epigenetics and everyone's
Yeah.
temperament's different. There's just so many variables. And then it's like
Yeah.
arguably important to foster resilience of the child, right? So it's not to uh, abuse them to foster resilience, but to allow them to struggle and fail and push them
Yeah,
and
because
to
real life
not be
doesn't care
perfect.
about your feelings. Your
Yeah.
boss isn't really gonna care about your feelings, you know, like, there are times where you just have to manage your feelings on your own and, like, adapt
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. So I always try to tell parents like one of the best things you can do as a parent is confidently regulate yourself. All these other things will take
for
care of
sure.
themselves, but like that's the best gift you can give a child is to know how to self-regulate.
Yeah. I think one thing that can be difficult is if you've got a child who's got, a temperament that is challenging for you, and so like, it's very easy to self-regulate when you have a kid who's pretty easy. It's
True.
difficult, like, when you've got a kid, like, pathological well, we're not even supposed to use that term, but just a kid who's, like, doesn't know how to appropriately express what they're feeling, like, has a lot of trouble managing their emotions, like, is given to extreme behaviors, like, I think it's pretty hard for any
Well,
parent to
yeah,
stay regulated during that.
yeah, that's why it's impossible to
Yeah.
I mean, even if you regulate 95% of the time, you're going to activate the nervous system. The 5% that you don't, that's going to imprint their memories as to attachments, and then
Yeah.
they're going to model that out into their adult world.
Yeah.
So,
But I do think, it kind of goes back to repair. Like,
yeah, that's what
I
counts.
I think adult parents who've made mistakes, I think they should apologize because you're just modeling
But
how
the
to be
other
an
issue with
adult.
that, you're talking about silent generations, like, it's so different of a, it was such a different world in their upbringing,
Yeah.
um, that these children might be setting some kind of expectation that is actually impossible.
Meaning,
So, like with language and philosophy
mm,
about parenthood and child dynamics,
mm.
you're going up against like 50, 60 years of programming. And I mean, it might not be impossible with the help and guide of therapy, but like to go expect that you're going to get that on a Saturday brunch,
Oh, for sure.
um,
No,
like
yeah,
that's not going to happen.
yeah. And then I think it goes back to, kind of what I see with high conflict couples. Like, at a certain point, it's just like accepting who the other person is. Like, if you can't get them to change, if you can't get them to have an epiphany and
Yeah, I see a
tell
lot
you
of,
all the things that you wanna hear, like, what are you gonna do?
there's a lot of like protesting behavior
We talking
and like,
about with adult children or the high conflict
like
couples?
couples,
Mhm.
um, like almost like a tantruming to get their needs met and change the other.
Yes. Yeah. Which again doesn't invite
Change.
change unless somebody's doing it grudgingly, and then they're gonna
And then
do
it's
passive
resentment.
aggressive stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. What is, I saw your notes too. Is it, what is FOO? Does that stand for?
Family of origin.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, yeah, behavior learned in family of origin. Yeah, so it is kind of, I think it's a hard thing to navigate with couples and like families with kids too, where a child never seeing their parents argue about anything is an issue, and then a child observing their parents arguing about everything is an issue. And so trying to figure out the middle, but also you're in an argument. So how do you appropriately do that while the children are observing, right? There's a lot of variables there
Yeah. And then again, it like what you're supposed to do changes according to what generation you are
developmentally
and like
and yeah.
but also what books you're reading, like
And how old one
yeah.
child is versus another, like what's appropriate.
Yeah.
It's like you can't do this like consistently effectively. You're gonna mess up.
Yeah. And I think about my high conflict divorce couples, because one question I'll get is if there's a parent who's genuinely doing things that are harmful and the kid is bringing it up. The conventional wisdom has always been to say, "Oh, your mom and dad, they're great. They love you, blah, blah, blah." But there's a certain point when, like, what is it that you should say to them? Like, if a child is not wanting to go to the other person's house because their relationship with their parent is so fraught and the parent is really unable to meet the child's needs, like,
Yeah, you probably shouldn't tell them that's love.
you shouldn't tell them that's
Right.
love. Right.
Right.
But I think that there's a way of sort of acknowledging the child's experience where you're not bad mouthing the other parent and then you're giving them some ideas of how they could handle things.
Yeah.
Um, but that is often very hard for people to do when they're dysregulated and, they're really seeing the other parent as the devil.
Yeah, that's rarely gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we say stuff um, that can be comforting or very idealized, right? It's like, oh, your parent loves you and they just wants what best for you and all this stuff. And what messaging are we sharing about what love is or
Yeah.
accountability, um, limits, boundaries?
Yeah. Yeah, so I tell people who are, like, asking, like, "What do I say?" Like, just to also think of the environment that you're creating for your child when they're coming to you with their feelings. Like, they don't wanna take on your feelings. They don't wanna feel that you're really upset about it. They wanna feel like there's space for them to have their own feelings, and you're not gonna, pile on with pressure of what to do, but that you're just you're kind of creating a safe space for them to come talk to you so that over time, even if the other parent can't do that, at least they will have that experience with you. They'll have an experience with a
Yeah,
parent who like was
which
able
is
to
hard to
emotionally
cultivate
attune.
for a kid because in those types of dynamics, you're often going to get a very rebellious kid or a very shut down kid,
Mhm.
neither of which are going to be very engaged when you try to talk to them about feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. But all of this could also be happening in intact families as well.
Oh, and one of the unintentional byproducts of therapy or being immersed in misinformation online about psychotherapy can be neurosis. Just very like
Yeah.
fixated on this whole thing because it's like, yeah, I'm a therapist and I've been to therapy and I, it's in my world. Yet sometimes I need to not like focus on it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a learning curve for clients that maybe they've just gotten engaged in decent therapy and it's not platitudes and bullshit and
Yeah.
there's reflecting happening and there's emotional expression experiencing happening. They can kind of go into overdrive and they're journaling all the time and they're trying to talk to their partner about their feelings all the time. It's like that's not what this is, right? That creates like a neurotic experience of
Yeah.
the world.
And I mean, life there's just suffering in life. I
Yeah, and no
think.
obsession is good, even if it's about mental health or
Yeah.
like you having any kind of like a emotional wound that to be healed.
Yeah.
It's like let's all
So what
simmer
do you
down a bit.
do? What do you do to get out of your own head? Like, what are the things you do when you're not therapizing?
Yeah, like just to try to be. Yeah, that sounds pretty wild, but at times to be reactive and not in like a toxic way, but to allow, because I could, if left unchecked, I can filter a lot of like my nervous system, like, and not have just an impulse or
Mm.
like a natural response. Like I can regulate too
Mhm.
well at times.
Mm.
And so
So there's like
turning
a
that
value
down
in the
some.
Uh-huh.
Because it's like, wait, sometimes that reactivity is informative, right? If I'm always hyper regulated,
Yeah.
like I'm not being informed and I'm not informing the other either.
Yeah.
So that can be kind of unique and the challenges there.
Yeah. I mean, do you do anything to allow that response to bubble up? Like, are there like certain activities or
Yeah, sometimes I'll like just spit in people's faces on the sidewalk. No, I'm kidding.
Uh,
I play soccer a lot. I will say that is a very unfiltered version of me. If I get like, there's been numerous people I've heard on sidelines be like, "Oh, he's a therapist," because like sometimes I'll just cuss people out or shove them or tell them I'll go beat their ass in the parking lot. I mean, it's just I won't actually, but
yeah.
there's like this aggressive part that still exists from when I was like a teenager that in between those lines,
Yeah.
it comes out sometimes, and sometimes I get red cards. Nothing super malicious, no like actual harm, but that's like the one spot in my life. Like I don't yell at people or threaten people or anything like that, except when I'm in that kind of like adrenaline competition
Yeah.
space. Like that's the
Yeah.
only place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because my partner is fantastic, but he's, like, not a therapy guy, and, like,
Mm,
we just don't spend a lot of time talking about feelings, and it's such a relief. It's just, like, I
sure.
just don't want to have to analyze and observe everything. I think, we are also just supposed to be.
Yeah, and just ride the wave, right? It's like
Yeah.
we don't always need to understand the weight and how it's functioning. Just kind of ride it and
Yeah, and I think sometimes you don't really understand things until much later.
yeah, there's no way to. Well, tell
So
me about the group therapy stuff.
yeah. Yeah, I love my groups. I don't know, I can't remember, did you work in treatment settings for a while?
Mm,
Did you run groups in treatment
lots
settings?
lots of
Yeah,
process groups. Yeah.
okay. So, my experience running groups in treatment settings was, there are a lot of people there who are band-aided, sometimes people are nodding off, like, it wasn't always, sort of
Mhm.
the best experience to run a group, and I had gone to a divorce support group when I got divorced that I did not I left after 3 sessions because it was just everybody was kind of bleeding out, and the therapist was sort of talking about his own bad divorce, and I just thought, "Oh, I don't this doesn't feel
Yeah.
good." I, like, wanna have some sort of idea for, like, how things could be better. So, in the back of my mind, I'd thought about for a long time, I wanna run divorce support groups, but I wanna give them a different experience. I wanna give people a different experience from what I had. So, like, they're skills-based groups. So I run one for men and I run one for women because I really feel like men need their own space and women need their own space. And so the first part of each session is there's some piece of psychoeducation or a tool or a skill that we talk about. Like, we always talk about divorce grief. We talk about resentment. We talk about how to set a divorce curfew. So, like, there's only so much time in the day you're going to allow yourself to, like, think about divorce. Um, and so people have a chance to talk about, like, how do I apply this idea or this tool to my situation? And then the last part of the group, like the second half, is the sharing and the support. And
Mhm.
I have really loved doing these groups because I've sort of gotten to take all the things that I've learned over the amount of time I've been working with divorced couples and sort of distill them into these like little modules. And then I think people feel so isolated going through divorce, and especially if they have a bad divorce. So just to be with people who kind of have your same situation, and then you get to ask, like, well, I'm having a really hard time communicating with my ex. Like, I can't even bear to open the email. Like, and
Yeah.
what is somebody else doing? So I really, really love love the groups, and they're also great for people who they may not be able to afford weekly individual therapy, but they can afford a group for 10 weeks. So, yeah, I run about 3 of them a year, um, and it's also just fun to, like, do something that's not individual or couples, just because group is so different. Like, it's
Mhm.
just such a different modality. So,
Yeah, I love groups.
yeah.
I love doing process groups. I tried to
Are you
start a
running one
couple.
now?
No, I tried to start some, maybe one, probably twice in the last number of years, but I think it's pretty hard to do in private practice. Divorce support groups are, yeah, I think those are more common to hear about than other groups. Um,
Yeah. I recently started attending, I'm in Asheville, and there's a group for therapists who run groups, and I'm sort of in awe of the people who run the process groups because you've got to find people who are willing to sign up for like a minimum of 3 months, if not more.
Mhm.
And it's much more, you know, psychoanalytic. So I think it's
Well, and
harder to find.
people don't want to do groups, right? It's a very like, yeah, if I was searching for therapy right now, I wouldn't be going to group therapy, right? Like I don't want to go talk to a bunch of strangers. I want to just talk to this one person in this
Yeah,
little
it's
knit
easier.
nook here and then skate out.
Yeah. But you
I don't
learn
wanna meet
so much
people.
more
Oh,
about
yeah, I
yourself.
know, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
But,
but I
like,
know.
even myself, like, I would have 2 options on my screen that I search. I would click the individual therapist,
Uh-huh.
just by default.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's harder to expect people it's usually more of, like, a higher level of care thing that you're forced into. But again, divorce support, I think, has less of a like, if someone were wanting to work on, their emotional reactivity or something, um, they're gonna be more apt to search in for individual therapy and to see a group online that would be like, huh, that's weird. If they're looking for divorce support and they saw a group pop up online, I don't think most people would think it was weird. They would be able to be like, oh yeah, I've heard of divorce support groups through like a church, or I think there's other mediums that
Yeah.
um, kind of pervade the internet besides just psychotherapy groups for divorce, to where like the layman may be more amenable to it.
Yeah, and I just find that the people who sign up have been thirsting for it. Like, they say,
Mm.
I don't have other friends who are going through it," or, "My
Yeah, no, I
family and
think it's great.
friends are tired of hearing about it." And what I really love is the men, because I think we have this myth that men don't want emotional connection.
Yeah.
And I've just seen men in these groups, like, be so lovely with each other, like, so supportive, and they do it in obviously a different way than women do it, but I really love providing that space for men because a lot of them are just like, they've got a very difficult ex and they don't know other single dads and they want to know that they're not
Their
alone.
ex keeps sending them narcissism reels.
Probably, yes. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's I mean, yeah, some guys connect playing a video game together and not talking about anything.
Yeah.
It's just different. Um, I want something a little bit more of substance than that. Um, and I think there's a value to learning, wait, is there a way to communicate this at a deeper level as opposed to just like being in the room watching a game together or something. Um, but it's like I think it's important to not overlook that as functional and to just say like, oh, that's avoidant or whatever. It's like, okay, well, the issue is for all time with these um, gender dynamics is it's so subtle but pervasive. And I do it too. I have my own phenomenology, like how I think and view and feel and perceive the world. And if you're to do something right now, I immediately go through, well, why would I do that? And then I'll put that on why you did it.
Mhm.
Right? So
Right.
like in a female male dyad where the guy goes to a friend's house and watches a game and doesn't talk about anything, she will go, well, if I went to my girlfriend's house and we watched something and didn't talk about it, that would mean I was avoiding whatever, right? We fill it in and then we respond to what we filled in. And then the
Yeah.
other's doing it too. So guess what? Now we're in this like tailspin where there's just no accurate information.
Yeah. Now, men and women are definitely different.
Yeah.
And yeah, they should be allowed to be different.
Yeah. And I think just sometimes in couples having just a very direct conversation about that can be helpful. Just
Yeah.
philosophically, like,
Yeah.
and one other thing that I see um, is it's like the difference between understanding and agreeing. So in conflict, people say they want to be understood. They don't really care about that. They want you to agree with them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you don't understand. And being able to sell this idea that there can be both, right?
Totally.
A person can understand you at your core and simultaneously disagree with you.
Yeah. And I talk to all my couples, divorced or not, like, there's veracity in each of your points of view, and you
Sure.
don't need to agree with the other one to respect that they get to have their own experience.
hmm And that's
Yeah.
part of the nature of the fight is,
Yeah.
oh, you don't agree. Therefore, you think I'm wrong and I need to disprove that you're right.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'd say, like, regardless of context in couples, like it kind of boils down to that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think some of this is also just because I'm older than you are, so I think a lot of this is just growing older and kinda realizing like, when I think back to how I was in my divorce, like, I was really reactive. Like, I
Mm,
reacted to things that were just, like, ridiculous.
just didn't
And
matter
I
now. Yeah.
and I wanted him to acknowledge things about me that he was never gonna acknowledge. And so,
Yeah.
like, it was letting that go that was really where the freedom was. Like,
I about to
okay,
say it's so freeing, right?
yeah, he can think whatever he wants. Like, it's not really my business, but like, I that was sort of the game changer for me. But I think it's hard in divorce, especially if you're going through the family court system and everybody's examining you. Like, people get so, um, you feel so deeply vulnerable and like you're fighting so hard to hold on to some kind of a dream that I think it kind of goes against what's often best for people is just to be self-aware and to,
Oh yeah, and when
kind
you're in a court, like there's zero aptitude for therapeutic process or alliance. It's
no.
that's the wild wild west. I don't give a
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a toxic cesspool of winners and losers.
Yeah. And as
It's
we know, there's some personalities that like that is their amphitheater.
yeah.
And they gather allies, and it is the hill that they are dying on, that the other person is all to blame.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's supposed to be some new Lake Norman reality TV show. That's all they were casting for it.
Oh, like the
I've gotta
housewives
watch
of
an
Lake
episode.
Norman?
I don't know. I was hoping it was gonna be like the weird rednecks we have around here that go fish, but it's probably like um, I don't
Uh,
know, like NFL players or their wives or something.
yeah, yeah.
But like the drama, I think that
Mhm.
yeah, I would say much like the overexposure to pop psychology and misinformation, reality TV has done a disservice to how we model conflict or navigate social relationships too.
Yeah, or like drama and excess is somehow,
Theater,
uh
yeah, it's something like alluring and yeah.
yeah, or it means I'm important or yeah,
Yeah,
all
it's
that.
well, it's the people that like to gossip, right? They like to observe and get into toxic bullshit.
Mhm. Yeah, I have a friend who I can't say which show, but her partner worked on one of the big reality TV shows, and she was saying they were always looking for people who were,
Volatile.
volatile. Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
what's
they didn't
gonna
want anybody stable
no. It's like a car
'cause
wreck, right? You just keep
yeah,
turning your head. You can't
yeah,
stop looking at it. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with Lake Norman reality TV.
yeah.
Maybe I could
Well,
come in
maybe
as like a,
you'll be the
you know,
therapist on the show.
yeah, I'll make just like a, I don't know, 10 grand an hour. Just pop in.
I think you should, because those shows actually have a therapist on staff because
Yeah.
people have to go through screening, so you should yeah, you should
I
see.
should. That'd be a story. I have
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been nice to chat.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think we
glad we
finally
did this.
made it happen.
And
Hopefully
I
it
shouldn't bash social media too much because this is actually how we met on Facebook. Because you
that's
wrote a
true.
blog post that I thought it was very smart. It was about what you were seeing in couples therapy with men and women and how
Yeah.
men are expected to have all this emotional language that they don't have. So sometimes social media does good things.
It's not all bad. And
Yeah.
that's in part why I do this. Is because I do think we just need like better therapists exposed online because the
Yeah.
stuff I see is
Getting
terrifying.
into the nuance because online it's so boiled down to,
Yeah.
yes, everybody is a narcissist or a borderline and right.
Yeah, but I don't think like many people are sending our stuff to like their partners because it's not neurotic.
It's not as pithy.
Yeah.
A little more
There's
philosophical.
there's no dagger to send to somebody, but what I just said really.